On this episode of Big Boys Don't Cry, we discuss the 2007 film B-Movie. You don't have to have seen the film to enjoy the podcast, but if you do listen without having seen it, just be aware that we may spoil it for you. Enjoy. B-movie, it's a B-movie, it's a film about bees. Da-da-da-da.
Good evening, Paddy.
It's about bees.
It's beautiful. How are you this evening?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I'm being good. You know, I'm being a good boy.
Has it been a good week?
It has been an okay week, yeah. I've been doing a lot of reading about NFTs. You've been reading about this stuff?
I have. The new cryptocurrency-related scam.
Yeah. It stands for new fucking trash, am I right?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I actually did just Google if someone had done any B-movie related NFTs, and then no one's done one yet. So that's probably something that's going to happen, right?
Oh, that's
if
what
the
we
internet
need to
loves
do.
a thing, it's going to be eventually exploited by weird rich dicks who want to create a strange market for them to spend like millions of dollars to prove how many millions of dollars they've got. So, like, get on it.
I'm going to spend thousands of dollars to get a thing that says that I own this thing that I can impress the other 5 people who have NFTs with.
Yeah. I'm going to spend $65 million on a bit of code that links to another bit of code that links to another bit of code that's hosted on the server of a company that's like an auction house for these new art, like fancy art things. That's foolproof. That company's never going to go bust.
No, it's definitely not going to get sold off to another company that then wants to charge the owners of the NFTs money to maintain their servers. That's definitely not going to happen in about 5 years' time. Yeah,
definitely not going to happen. No one's going to look at that and go, hey, the guy who bought this bought it for $65 million. Be nice if we could have some of that money back.
Yeah, here's a charge of $1,000 a month to maintain our servers, please.
Nice picture of Jerry Seinfeld in a bee costume you got there. Shame if something happened to it. Or rather, shame if something happened to this bit of code that tells everyone that you are the original and true owner of this picture of Jerry Seinfeld in a bee costume that no one can see or gives a shit about.
This specific version of this photo that's already been shared all over the place on different platforms as a JPEG.
Yep.
That's
and
the thing
PNG.
Is they claim that that's what is so stupid about this. It's claiming ownership over stuff that actually you can't own, because basically the moment something is digitally created, it's owned by everybody because someone could just take a screenshot or take a pirated copy and share it everywhere.
Yeah. The idea behind it of artists being able to prove some kind of ownership of their work is good, but the trouble is that the way it's being approached is with the auction house of fake rich person nonsense.
Also, we already have that system in place. It's called artists having copyright over their own work and then selling it in a way that's been actually quite successful for artists online for a very long time now. This has just been created as another means for annoying tech dickheads to try and claim that people don't know how to invest money. Yeah. Which is exactly what happened with cryptocurrency. It's lots of people going, oh, you don't know how to do the stocks, yeah? Oh, you don't get tech. You don't know how to do the stocks. This is how cool tech guys do it now, yeah? I'm worth so much money in shitcoin.
Stonks and shores.
It's just, fuck off, you awful capitalist bastards.
Yeah. They want to talk about how much money B-Movie made, because B-Movie made a lot of money at the box office.
B-Movie made not a B level of money at the box office, but an A level of money at the box office.
Nice. They should have called it A-Movie.
A-Movie. So, did it really make that much money?
It made, according to the Wikipedia, budget 150 million, box office 293.6 million.
So that's
But
not
is that like an astronomical amount of money? That seems to me like an insane amount of money, but I think I don't know loads about, like, I don't study box office figures all the time. It only ever comes up actually when we do this show and we look up how much a film made, whether it made its budget back. And to me, I'm always like, if it turned a profit, great. If that sum is a ridiculous amount of money to me as an individual, it's a ridiculous amount of money. But actually, maybe it's not.
Yeah, remember that. It's not just about making a profit, it's about getting money to the shareholders as well. And so it'll all be about predicting making an astronomical amount of money.
The people who have the stonks and shares.
Yeah,
stonks
so just...
and shores.
So the direct example here is the same year that B-Movie came out, Ratatouille came out. Ratatouille's budget was exactly the same as B-Movie's, 150 million. Ratatouille's worldwide gross was 623 million.
Yeah, but that's a Disney/Pixar film. You can't compare that to the independently made B-Movie.
Yeah, because DreamWorks.
The Seinfeld made and produced. He did it all himself.
He did it all himself. That's why the animation is so unbelievably ugly.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he wrote the theme tune. He sang the theme tune.
But yeah, no. So exactly the same budget, made by DreamWorks. Obviously, they were the main challengers at the time to Pixar, and it made, less than half what Ratatouille made. So it's still a commendable amount of money for greedy capitalists everywhere, but not as much money for greedy capitalists everywhere as Ratatouille made.
Ergo, B-Movie is better, I say, having not seen Ratatouille.
Yeah, you've not seen it. I'm going to say the official stance of this podcast, Ratatouille is a better movie than B-Movie, because it is. But there were certain things I liked about B-Movie. I'd never seen it before. Obviously, there was those memes a few years ago when people were sharing it, and every time they said the word B, it sped up, for instance. That was the big one.
Yep, I have seen that.
There was lots of...
That was what you wanted us to watch for the show, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's what we watched. We didn't watch the actual movie.
Right. It's a bit like people who listen to podcasts at double speed. God bless you, you maniacs. I wonder if anyone does listen to us at double speed.
Should we start talking really slowly just to make up for it?
Yes, I think we should.
My name is Rob, and I talk at a normal speed if you do it at fast forward.
Oh.
So
the Count from Sesame Street just popped in.
But B-Movie's not a terrible movie. I was expecting it to be really bad, and there are parts of it that are bad, but there's also bits that are funny.
You know what? I quite enjoyed it. I'm going to say that right now at the outset. Yeah. It was a palate cleanser, for sure. I didn't go in with high expectations. I thought it was a goofy, fun, almost, would you go so far as to say it's an animated shit piece?
Yes, I would. I would call it an animated shit piece.
Good. And that's our first one, right?
That is our first one. So for new listeners, the shit piece does not mean a bad movie. The shit piece is a strange, bizarre, and just hypnotic film that makes terrible decisions but is still like undeniably entertaining to watch. I guess that's the best way to describe a shit piece, isn't it?
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. I mean, if you think of some of the others that we've done, the prototypical one was Jupiter Ascending, which is a film that we actually love.
Yes,
I love it. You love it. It's a brilliant film, but it is also really bizarre, totally wild and really out there, and lots of stuff in it is very funny as well. Yeah,
Jupiter Ascending. Channing Tatum has dog ears and rocket boots. It's just it's beautiful. So they could technically be bad movies, but bad and enjoyable at the same time. So that doesn't necessarily mean like a cult classic so bad it's good film like The Room. It's kind of a separate thing from that. Although The Room is a shit piece. You don't have to be in a so bad it's good category. It can just be a very strange movie that makes awful decisions, but somehow is still really great to watch. And I think B-Movie definitely falls into the category of a shit piece.
100%. And the shit piece isn't just a so bad it's good film either. It's not Sharknado. It's not that kind of thing where people have deliberately made something stupid. I think of a shit piece as like something where a lot of good intention has gone into it and ambition has gone into it as well, but not necessarily in a hubristic way. I mean, often they are a bit self-aware. I think B-movie is reasonably self-aware as shit pieces go.
Yeah, I'd say so. It is a surprisingly clever movie when it wants to be.
Which is only a quarter of the time.
yeah. But the best, what I didn't expect, so obviously the main discourse around B-movie is it's a bee that wants to fuck a woman and a woman who wants to fuck a bee. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. It's teaching children about the birds and the bees. And in this case, the birds is Renee Zellweger and the bees is Jerry Seinfeld.
Exactly.
Who saw that pairing coming?
But really, that constitutes kind of the first third of the movie. So the first third of the movie is DreamWorks' Ants. It was DreamWorks that make Ants, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. Ants, which is in itself a rip-off of A Bug's Life.
Well, they came out at the same time, didn't they? Ants and A Bug's Life.
No, A Bug's Life came out before, I'm sure. Incidentally, my wife is a huge Disney and Pixar fan, but she hates A Bug's Life. She refuses to rewatch it.
I'm actually with her. I don't like A Bug's Life.
Well, I can't tell you whether I like it or not because she won't let me watch it.
So I can tell you now, Paddy.
Oh, they both came out the same year. You're right.
Yeah, I am right with these things. It's much like Volcano versus Dante's Peak, or what was the two ones about the there was two movies about a meteorite in the same year, wasn't there?
Which year?
The one with Bruce Willis. I don't want to miss a thing.
Oh, Armageddon.
Yeah. And Deep Rising came out the same year.
That's right.
As well. Every so often, movie studios do this, and they're like, right, here's exactly the same idea done in a slightly different way. Let's battle it out to see who wins.
Let's battle it out.
Why are you doing
Whilst
this?
also introducing a whole new generation of kids to Aerosmith.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember once, my enjoyment of that song has permanently been changed because we were I was in the studio with Titans and Kings, my rock band.
Oh, yes.
And
Big up
our
Titans
producer Antonio, shout out to Antonio, you are wonderful and we love you. In a bit of downtime, he was like, hey, do you want me to ruin Don't Want to Miss a Thing for you? And he pointed out that at the end of the song during the last chorus, someone's playing the triangle. And once you hear the ding, ding, ding of the triangle, you can never not hear it.
That's a real thing.
It's a real thing. At the end of I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, in the final chorus, someone's playing the triangle. And once you hear it, you can never unhear it.
I guess you can never hear that if you're not listening for it, like looking for it, because Steven Tyler's goes, even when I dream,
even when I dream of you.
That's not bad. I can't do a good Steven Tyler.
I've done a little bit of Steven Tyler in my time.
I think I've mentioned it before, but a friend of the podcast, Adam Molesky, he used to think that the lyrics to the chorus to Love in an Elevator went, love in an elevator, yeah, and just repeated the same words over and over.
It's so much better.
The actual phrase is living it up while I'm going down.
Yeah, but I love in an elevator, yeah. It's great.
I mean, it's a big dumb rock song.
Yeah. That's all you need. But yeah, listen out to for the triangle at the end of Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
I'm excited to listen to that song now.
Yeah.
So anyway, this was supposed to make a point about A Bug's Life versus Ants, right?
That's right, yeah. But yeah, so the first third of this movie is the movie Ants, where it's about rather than an ant who wants to go off and do his own thing, it's about a bee that wants to go off and do his own thing. But rather than Ants is weird, I believe that, I haven't seen Ants in years, but I believe it gets into kind of a political conspiracy territory where there's an evil leader who's deliberately undermining the ant politic.
Ooh.
As a whole. Rather than that, that's replaced in B-movie with he finds a woman who he wants to fuck. And that's the first third of this movie. And then he comes back and he's like, I met a really nice human and I went out and saw things. And he keeps going out and then he finds honey. And from that point on, he realizes that the bees are the exploited worker being destroyed from above by their capitalist overlords, the humans, and it turns into a really stupid courtroom drama for the middle third.
It becomes like a John Grisham legal thriller with bees.
Yeah, with a lawyer getting stung on the bottom. And then for the final third, it's like the world is dying because there's no flowers, and it becomes like this airplane landing thriller. It's like, what is going on with this
it
film?
Becomes Speed, basically, with bees.
You're supposed to Speed. You're supposed to. I understand that you're supposed to tell a story in 3 acts, but those 3 acts aren't supposed to be entirely different genres of film.
Yeah, I think they had like a bunch of different versions, and they took 3 of the best acts from them and just kind of smashed them together.
They had a tombola with all of their ideas in, and it's like, okay, first act is B wants to fuck a lady. Second act is John Grisham. Third act is airplane crash. Go, ride it.
That's what I got on the bee fruit machine. I'm rich.
Exactly. So yeah, Bee Movie. It is. I've never seen anything quite like it. But it kind of is really enjoyable, isn't it?
I thought it was a really good laugh, and part of that is to do with Jerry Seinfeld, who is very funny, and Seinfeld was a great show, and he is good at gags, and it's an almost quite old school and dated, even at the time of the release of this movie, slightly dated style of comedy, but that I think lends itself well to the goof factor of this film, even though at times you think this is literally just a bunch of bee gags strewn together. With, as you say, a bunch of extraneous plot stuff plucked from other films and sort of thrown on top of it. Ultimately, still, it's a bunch of bee gags thrown together. It still works.
Yeah, it's just a lot of puns, and lots of silly little jokes.
It's like Jerry Seinfeld once visited a bee farm, a honey farm or whatever, bought a little notebook in the gift shop and was sitting there in the cafe after it, like trying to write some jokes, which is what he does. And he wrote all his bee jokes in that book. And then someone at DreamWorks got hold of it and was like, this, my friend, this is gold. This is going to be our new film. And Seinfeld was like, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. And yeah, there's just, it's kind of non-stop jokes a lot of the way through, particularly at the beginning when they're in the bee hive, which is this little city, and all of the jokes are about how they never take breaks and their lives are really short. So it's like, Barry B. Benson, our main character, is talking to his mate. Can I just say I love the name Barry B. Benson?
Barry B. Benson. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing. It's so good. Saying, 3 days of grade school, 3 days of high school, 3 days of college. I'm glad I took a day off in the middle to hitchhike around the hive.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, okay, I get what you're doing there. It's a funny little joke. There's lots of those little quips where it moves so quickly that you don't think about the horrifying logic behind this world where all of the animals are sentient and can speak but choose not to. So initially you think it's just bees or maybe bugs in general that can speak. Because he runs into a mosquito who becomes his friend, and they make the obligatory, I'm a bloodsucker, so I'm going to become a lawyer joke, because of course they do.
That is very, very funny. It's Chris Rock putting on his best voice, and he appears at the end. It's like, I decided to become a lawyer. I was already a blood-sucking parasite. Whoop, boop, 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 boop. That's the actual noise that he makes.
That's not a joke that's been told 100,000 times before.
That joke surely is in A Bug's Life and Ants as well, although I can't confirm that.
I'm sure it is. But it does raise some really worrying questions where at the end he's talking to a cow and the cow is saying, they take my milk to make cheese. I'm just a product to them. I'm just a piece of meat. And you're thinking, What about all those animals who are slaughtered for food all the time? Do none of them think, as they're about to get killed, wait a minute, I better say something about this? It's like, no, let's just ignore that and let's just throw in some more jokes. Let's make people forget about the logical flaws of this movie with more puns. Throw on the puns, throw on the puns, throw on the puns, please.
Throw on the puns. We know that crickets can talk because there's like a raunchy joke about the granddad having dated a cricket once in San Antonio.
Yes, yeah. And also, clearly fancying spiders as a fetish in the bee world as well.
Yeah.
They talk about that as well, don't they?
That's what I love about this. I mean, I think I am known on this podcast to take films apart for their logical flaws, which I was doing last week for whatever film we watched last week that I can't even remember because that's where I am right now. But in this one, every time there's a gag, it creates a new logical flaw. Like every time there's a bee joke, it opens up some new hole in the space-time bee continuum. But it doesn't matter because it's funny.
Yeah, exactly. It's, this is a movie that does not care about structure or logic. It cares about throwing bee puns at you and making Joe Swanson get cucked by a bee. And that's all you need to know about this movie, isn't it? It's just, we're gonna see a man losing his relationship to a literal bee.
Yes.
It's so good.
After he tries to kill him with flames from a deodorant can.
Yes, yeah. So I think it's probably worth talking about the cast in general because it's a really good cast. You've got Jerry Seinfeld and Renee Zellweger as the bee and woman who want to have sex with each other.
Yeah, and they don't obviously because it's a
they
kids
don't
film.
but
it's implied.
And they don't even really go into the romantic angle at all. So he clearly has a crush on her at the beginning, but then that gets forgotten about as soon as it becomes the John Grisham story. Then you've got Matthew Broderick, who's his best mate. You've got Patrick Warburton. Joe Swanson is the husband who gets cucked by a bee. Just want to reiterate, man gets cucked by a bee. That person is Patrick Warburton. It's great.
Yep. You'll remember him as Kronk in The Emperor's New Groove, of course.
Yep. He's got one of those wonderful voices. But then you've got, John Goodman, Chris Rock, Kathy Bates. Larry King has a cameo. Ray Liotta has a cameo. Sting has a cameo. You've got Oprah, however you want to pronounce it. I say opera because I'm from the UK.
Yeah.
But
Oprah, who you'll remember from interviewing royalty. That's what she did, right?
That's the only thing she's ever done.
Yeah.
I don't think she's an incredibly successful business person.
Oh, and she has a book club. People like to read books with her.
Yes. You've got Rip Torn as well.
Yeah.
His
name will always amuse me.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a great cast in here.
Also, John DiMaggio as Bailiff and Janitor. Let's not forget the voice of Bender and so many other characters. He's one of the true voice actor greats, isn't he?
Oh yeah. You can't go wrong with John DiMaggio. He's brilliant and just a really versatile, wonderful voice actor. But the voice cast does a really good job actually, and there's a lot of character behind the voice cast, and it works really well. But then it all gets let down a little bit by the fact that this is one of the ugliest 3D animated movies of the era.
It actually wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be. That doesn't mean that it's good, but I think I was expecting the animation to be worse.
No, so for me, the bees look okay. I still think it's a bit weird that they've got just really human faces. I think it's very disconcerting.
But have you looked at ants? The faces
ants
and
is
are
horrifying.
Absolutely grotesque. How much they look like people.
Sylvester Stallone ant is the worst.
But they basically all look like Christopher Walken, and he only did the voice of one of them.
But so they vaguely modelled the characters after the actors in sort of slightly. So Sylvester Stallone has this massive jaw, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, it's so creepy looking, and all of them look horrifying. So it's not as bad as that, but this is a decade on from Ants. I think it's worth reiterating. So you'd expect things to look better, and I think that the bees in general look okay. I still think it's a bit weird that they have those human faces, but in general, I think they look all right. But where it really falls down is with the humans who look so unbelievably ugly. They're really creepy looking, aren't they? They almost look like the blue people from I'm Blue Dabba Dee Dabba Da.
Which I've still never seen.
What, you've never seen the video to Blue?
Oh, I thought you were referring to James Cameron's epic film Avatar.
Oh, no.
Which I have never seen. No, I have seen the video to Blue Dabba Dee, and now that song is going to be in my head for roughly a month, so thank you.
Little known fact, a triangle plays in the final chorus of Blue Dabba Dee. That is not true. I'm just making that up. But it is true about Don't Want to Miss a Thing. Go and listen to it. You'll see. You'll all see. But yeah, they're incredibly ugly. I think Renee Zellweger's character, just about passable. Patrick Warburton's character, not so much.
He is a very strange shape.
Quite creepy.
He's all chin.
But then when you get down to the minor characters, like I think the moment that made me almost turn my stomach was the two pilots at the end, the pilots who accidentally get knocked out at the end when with the plane crash finale, who are just so grotesque looking. It's unbelievable. And like, you know, movies have advanced since then, but you go back and watch Ratatouille, and I know this isn't a particularly good frame of reference for you, but, you know, think of another Pixar movie from that era. And they look so much better. And this movie costs the same amount of money, you know. It's not as though it was made on the cheap. But it does not
They spent it all on the rights to Seinfeld's Notebook that he got from the gift shop at the bee farm.
They gave all the money to Sting for Sting's cameo.
Yeah, and to Ray Liotta. He doesn't come cheap.
No, Ray Liotta. But yeah, so yeah, it is ugly. It is ugly, in my opinion, at least. You had less of a problem with it, but it was really
I still didn't think it was necessarily nice to look at, especially Ray Liotta, unfortunately. In this very weird thing where there's like Ray Liotta's special fancy honey with his face on, and then there's a whole gag of him appearing in the courtroom as this like capitalist honey baron. Very odd.
Yeah, you kind of think, has Ray Liotta ever shown any interest in honey before?
I don't know that he has. I think they was just like, who can we get for a lot of money? Who'll do this? Ray Liotta. It was. They probably tried a bunch of different people first, and they were all busy.
Yeah, do you think they went through the cast of Goodfellas?
Yeah.
Like, they wrote the script, and they had that little Goodfellas gag in there. And do you think they were just like, right, okay, who can we get from Goodfellas?
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, we've got Ray Liotta. That's as good as we're gonna get.
That, or they went through the cast of Field of Dreams, and Kevin Costner was busy.
Sure. Because nothing says a Goodfellas joke like Field of Dreams.
Ray Liotta's best performance.
Do you think? Yeah, they were like, okay, we failed with Robert De Niro, we failed with Joe Pesci, but we got Ray Liotta. Everyone, don't worry.
Yeah,
we got Ray Liotta.
We got Sting. Definitely, he was definitely at the peak of his career in 2007. At least 20, what was it? About 20 years on from his appearance in June in the metal cod piece.
When did Sting release Desert Rose? That's the last song that I remember him doing. I'm sure he's done
good Sting knowledge. I don't think I've heard that one.
That was like his big return, which I think was around the year 2000.
1999, it says here.
1999, okay. Yeah, I wonder what he was up to. He was working on a musical, apparently. He did a musical and then released an album off the back of it in 2013. But what was he doing? Yeah. Experimental albums, apparently.
Okay.
He was doing at this time.
I'm sure there's a reason we haven't heard them.
Do you reckon that's the musical equivalent of a shit piece?
Yeah.
Sting's experimental era?
A Sting piece.
A Sting piece?
Yeah.
So he did do some stuff around this time, though. Apparently he did an album called Songs from the Labyrinth. Unfortunately, I don't think it's Songs from the movie Labyrinth, which I know you've not seen, but we should watch at some point.
No, I have not.
And then he did an album called If on a Winter's Night, So he was doing music at this time.
That sounds like Winter's Tale, which is also a shit piece that we watched.
which is also a shit piece. Oh,
That's quite a good example of a shit piece, actually.
That is a very good example of a shit piece. But yeah, so yeah, Sting was clearly doing stuff at this point. He wasn't just sitting around going, I wish I had that pair of metal underpants from June still.
Yeah. So yes, good cameos from Sting and Ray Liotta. Great cast overall.
Yeah, it's much better than I thought it was going to be. But the romance aspect, I guess we need to discuss, because we are supposed to be a romance podcast.
Very strange. They never actually say like, "Oh, I love you. I'm in a relationship with you, you be," but like it's very, very obvious, and there are sort of gags about it. There's a weird bit where is it his friend Matthew Broderick kind of dobs him into his parents, and he's like, he has a human girlfriend and they make out. And he's like, no, we don't. Yes, but you want to. Like, as if that's supposed to be really filthy. And there is actually a lot of quite filthy humour in this that would have gone over kids' heads, but that would have the parents taking kids to see it would have enjoyed.
Yes, yeah, no, for sure.
A lot of incest jokes.
An awful lot of incest jokes, actually.
Those bees over there, they're our cousins. They're all our cousins.
They're all our cousins. We're bees.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in it. There's a fair amount of adult humour, and kind of, I think the core relationship, which like I said, the first third of this movie is very much about that relationship and about him fancying her, and it's never really established if she fancies him. I imagine not, because he is a literal bee, but you never know, do you?
An actual talking bee.
An actual talking bee.
Yeah. You're like, is he handsome as bees go? You know, he has a lot of desirable qualities that you'd want in a partner, but I think there'll be a lot of difficulty with that relationship as well.
Yeah, there's going to be some physical challenges about that relationship. But also, is he a handsome bee? I don't know if he is. You've got those other bees, the Air Force bees.
The pollen jocks.
Yeah, they're the ones who give the other bees a noogie and give him a honey swirly.
Yeah, the ones who sort out the whole thing of him being able to leave the hive with them, even though it's like set up literally 2 minutes before that they're the only ones who are allowed to leave the hive. They're like, we just teased this guy and we're going to let him come on the mission with us, even though he's not allowed to fly outside the hive. We're just going to let him.
Yeah, it's another logical failure of this movie, where it seems as though it's a very restricted, very compacted society where people have their own places. They're all compartmentalized into certain areas and they have to stay there. But if someone decides they don't want to, then the other people can be like, oh yeah, come along with us. It's no problem. But it doesn't matter, because it moves so quickly that you forget about it. But yeah, they do just kind of go, what the hell? Come with us. Come. Oh, watch out for the tennis balls.
Yeah. And let's have a long sequence to show that we can do some things with animation of him bouncing around on a tennis ball, being hit by the racket and not dying at any point.
Yes. Yeah. Which there are those sort of moments where they do get to show that kind of thing. There's also the moments where, it starts raining and he has to try and avoid the rain. Stuff like that is kind of effective.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of far away, so you don't get to see how horrible the character models are.
No, and I think that kind of stuff, it doesn't quite make up for how grotesque the humans are, but it is nice to see, and it is kind of aesthetically pleasing, which I think is why overall I thought the animation was better than I was expecting. There are some actually quite nice sequences in there.
I do like the bee cities. I think those are really well designed, and I think it's, again, ants as an obvious point of comparison, because it's another DreamWorks movie about insects. But the hives in that just look so grotesque and dour and horrible.
Nobody's driving a goofy car around in those anthills.
No, they don't have a honey swimming pool.
They don't all have like goofy jobs in the hive that they're assigned. They don't go on a little tour of the hive in a little monorail thing.
No, exactly. So there's something magical that works really well about the hive and the whole way that's set up, and I think I think the least successful part of this movie is the end section. The plane crash section is the worst. I don't think that works as well. But I think that first part of the movie is actually quite strong, where it sets the framework in place quite well in your mind about, oh, this is Beast Society. This is what it's like. And then the bizarre switch into the courtroom drama, I also think works very well, too. So I say for 2/3 of this movie, it's pretty entertaining.
For sure. Yeah, the plane thing is so weird. It's really tacked on. Like the last 10 minutes, and that's when after the courtroom drama, there's only about 10 to 15 minutes left. This film is a perfect 90 minutes, by the way, which is great. I think that's the perfect length for it. But yeah, after the courtroom drama's over, it's suddenly like 10 to 15 minutes of, oh, well, we can't just end there with a courtroom victory. Everyone would have too many questions, so they have to make up this whole thing. All the flowers are literally dead all over the world, and it's done in like 2 to 3 minutes. Very quick sort of rising action. It's just like, oh, suddenly everything's died and we need to go to Pasadena because that's the only place where there are flowers, and then we need to bring the flowers back to New York because we couldn't just pollinate there. Yeah, which again makes no sense. But all of that needs to happen because there needs to be 10 minutes of stuff happening on a plane. Jeopardy, plane.
Yeah, we need the plane crash. It's just, it's very bizarre, isn't it?
And so that the bees can all be allowed to leave the hive and guide the plane to safety.
And also, I think the most heinous crime of this movie is that section because it undermines the strong communist message of B-movie.
Yeah.
So I loved this. I love it when movies where you don't expect them to be actually have a strong anti-capitalist message.
Yeah, I knew you would enjoy that, and I enjoyed it a lot as well. I would have preferred if it had all the bees marching out of the hives, at the end in a celebration of their newfound freedom.
Yeah, or at least having a kind of, and you kind of get that there's they've seized the means of production, basically.
Yeah.
They've seized the means of production. I apologise for what that might do for the audio that you're editing, by the way, Paddy. Hopefully it's okay.
That's right. I'm more worried about the people who are listening to that on double speed or half speed, even.
But yes, so this movie, it has the bees realizing, wait, we're being exploited by our capitalist overlords, the humans. So then they launch a legal case, and the court finds that bees actually have ownership of the honey that they've created, which is great. And so there's these scenes where they're like reinstating the honey back to the hives, and it's brilliant. But then it kind of undermines it by saying, oh, but now the bees have nothing to do. It's like, no, they could still make the honey.
Yeah,
they could then just sell it back to the humans, which is
kind of what's too much honey.
And that's kind of what's established at the end, is that the bees are now, they've taken ownership. They're now selling the honey back on their own terms to the humans, which is great. And so it's like, you can have this collaboration, you can have socialism working within a capitalist society, and it benefiting the workers at the end of the day. And it's like, that's a great message, but I just wish it hadn't done the whole, they don't know what to do now that they don't have honey to make stolen from them.
That did make me think that, like, really it's actually trying to tell you that all you should do with your life is work and be productive, because if you don't, it's like going to kill everything in society, which is the argument that's always used against, progressive policies like a basic income or whatever. That, or the idea that if, we were to follow the ideas that people used to have about economics, and that we would be working less in the future because of automation and all that kind of thing, that we would actually be having a shorter working week or whatever, that productivity would go down and everything would die because people would just be lounging around. That, I worry that that's actually the underlying message that it was trying to get across. Seinfeld, you arch capitalist.
Yeah, you neocon bastards. So I had some complaints about that, because as a podcast, we stand the notion of the UBI.
Yeah, 100%.
You've got two choices in life, UBI or UTI. Which one do you stand with?
UBI or NFT?
Yeah, exactly.
Or UB40.
And let's be honest here. A lot of the people that create the notion of people lounging around not doing anything, and that being the downfall of society, that's all that they do all day.
Yeah.
You look at the people at the top of the food chain, they don't do any bloody work. They just sit around doing nothing all day. So if they're able to do it, why can't everybody else? And the idea that people need work to give them something to live for is also, I think, a notion that is proven wrong time and time again, because you look at the arts that are created. Arts are predominantly created by people who come from rich families where they don't have to worry about working and they can focus on creating the art that they want to create. By giving people more freedom to choose what to do with their time, you get things like art, you get creativity, you get progression.
Yeah. And this is why Il Postino is the greatest movie of all time. Because
exactly.
His work as a postman doesn't give him purpose. It's the poetry he's writing in between.
Yeah,
under
precisely.
the tutelage of the famous Cuban poet Pablo Neruda.
And you know, exactly. But then people will find other things to do with their time. They don't have to rely on doing a job that they hate to make the money to pay the bills. They don't have to churn honey all day to give them purpose. They'll find something else to give them purpose. When are we going to see the first great bee poet? When are we going to see the first great bee technological genius? Elon Musk. Yeah. No, exactly. It's an artless society, and that's why they're all so unfulfilled and have to fill their time with work. They do have television. Be Larry King. So it's just, I didn't like the fact that they toned down its anti-capitalist message, and I wonder if that was them going, oh god, this is too radical. Yeah, we can make people believe that a bee and a woman would want to fuck each other, but fair conditions for workers owning what they create, that's
incest
too radical,
jokes,
man.
Fine.
Exactly. So I knock points off for that. It should have gone all in. And not had, you didn't have to have that end bit where it's like, oh, everything's dying because the workers are enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
You didn't need that.
I didn't like that.
Fuck you, B movie.
From an environmentalist standpoint, it does highlight the fact that we need bees in the ecosystem and we need to keep the bees happy and whatever. So from that point of view, it's good. But ultimately, as an anti-capitalist metaphor, it fell apart at that point, and that was very disappointing.
Yeah, I think it maybe should have gone even further down the legal front, where rather than it being a plane crash at the end, instead it's the bees lose their court case, because of course they do, because they're the workers standing against the establishment. So what they do is the bees go on strike and they refuse to make honey and they refuse to pollinate. And that leads the humans to realize, wait, we need the bees. We need the workers. We need the proletariat.
Yeah. They lose the court case, but they seize the bees of production anyway.
Yeah, they do it anyway. And then they concede and think, you know what? No, we do need you to do this. We need you to make our honey. We need you to pollinate our plants, because without the worker, society crumbles. And that's what the end of the movie should have been. You could have had a little bee picket. You could have had the police coming in to try and disrupt the protests and getting scared off by the bees and stuff like that.
Yeah, because the bees would win. That's the thing.
Of course they would.
Upwards of 3 bees versus a human, the bees would win. Because humans are terrified of bees.
Because humans are terrified of bees. And
you can't
which
get
is established in the movie. So in my remake of Bee Movie, the live action remake of Bee Movie,
live action in
Jerry
inverted
Seinfeld.
commas. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is what they have now. This is a thing now. They did it with The Lion King. The live action Bee Movie genuinely is not worse than that.
No, exactly. At least you'll have some humans in it.
Actual talking lions and stuff.
Yeah. In our remake of Bee Movie, it only changes genre once in its runtime. So
rather than 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. So you've got the start, you've got the bee escaping society, falling in love with a human. Maybe we even spice it up a bit and have it even more romantic. Then he realizes that bees are being exploited, and starts this legal case. They lose the legal case, but then they go on strike. The human society, the bourgeois human society, realizes that it needs the worker bee to survive. It needs bees to pollinate. It needs bees to create the honey that it needs. And so they come to an understanding, and the bees have their means of production. They cooperate, and society thrives again.
Yeah.
That's what this movie should have been.
They agree to give the bees a universal bee income.
Yeah, exactly.
UBI.
Yeah, exactly. And you can make that joke and it would be funny. So B movie, The Reckoning is what we'll call it.
Yeah.
Because it's not a sequel, it's a reboot, but we need to separate it out from the original B movie.
B movie Reloaded. B movie Revolutions.
The B movie, the Beevolution. Beevolution.
That's good.
Yeah. You can't stop the children of the Beevolution. That'll be our little song.
Yeah. It'll be like a pop cover of it done by a contemporary artist.
Yeah. And then we release a video, and that's kind of like the promo where they're in B form and they're singing it.
Yeah. It won't be weird at all.
It'll be great.
And then we'll be able to sell the NFT of that for $60 million to fund some of our other less popular film projects like Lit Men. Maybe this is the way, because we're struggling to get Lit Men off the ground. Maybe this is the way we get Seinfeld in and signed up. We get him to do this one. It goes well. He's like, okay, I'll do Lit Men now.
I'll do Lit Men now. Yeah, that's great. And also we can then be called hypocrites by everyone because we're using something like an NFT that's so bad for the environment whilst making a movie that's about how bees are important to the environment.
Yeah, meanwhile we're literally killing bees with how much electricity we're using. Probably someone out there who's funding our blockchain is literally cutting down beehives to put in servers.
And also killing bees by having so many of them starring in our live action reboot of Bee Movie.
Yeah, because they don't live for very long, and a film generally takes quite a long time to shoot. You'll go through about 20 bees just playing one character.
You've got to have auditions, so who's going to be the best bee? And then when they die, you've got to redo the auditions. It's a whole logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
So this movie was made by DreamWorks. Are you a fan of DreamWorks pictures?
I'd say in general, yes. Not everything is a hit. They're not as good as Pixar, obviously. But they've done. Yeah. There's been some gems in there. There's Shrek, obviously. Mm-hmm. Can't argue with Shrek.
Because I think some of them are really good. So I think they had a really strong start. You've got the creepy otherness of ants. But then you've got Prince of Egypt.
Prince of Egypt's the film that everyone who is around our age watched in religious education lessons at the end of term in primary school.
Exactly. You've got The Road to El Dorado, which is a legit banger of a movie starring Kevin Kline. It's Kevin Kline and Kenneth Branagh are these two Spanish stowaways on an explorer boat who end up in El Dorado, the city of gold, and it's very, very funny. It's a great little movie with a great soundtrack as well. So that's one of those. It's one of those DreamWorks movies where you're like, this could be a good Disney movie. Which you can't say for all of them, but some of them will be like, this is on par with what Disney's creating. But yeah, Chicken Run, Shrek, brilliant. Shrek 2. Yeah. So yeah, I think it was them and Aardman, obviously.
Yeah.
Who put it together.
Oh, and they did the How to Train Your Dragon films. Those are surprisingly good.
Oh yeah, no, the How to Train Your Dragon movies and the Kung Fu Panda movies are genuinely wonderful. But where's our B movie sequel?
I know. It's very unfair that they didn't make it a franchise. And I'm sure the only reason is because of capitalist greed.
Yeah, it's the only reason. They realised that the movie had too strong a communist message, and so they were like, we can't allow this to propagate. We must shut it down. We've got to make The Boss Baby instead.
Yeah, and Turbo about a very fast snail.
I've still never seen Boss Baby, by the way.
I think I've seen like half of it when it was on TV once and we were channel hopping. It's not good.
Okay. I can't imagine.
I love Alec Baldwin, but it's not good.
I can't imagine it is good. It is about a boss baby.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do with that, right? You know,
Yeah.
What we've learned from B-movie is that 90 minutes of B gags are actually quite good. It was probably 90 minutes of baby gags. I mean, I've heard them all because I had a baby, but I think there's only so much you can do with babies, whereas there's a lot you can do with bees.
Yeah, there is. There's lots you can do with bees. You've got the whole 1/26th of the alphabet.
Yeah. You got hives, honey.
Yeah, it's great.
Honey
it's
being
great.
like money. That's a theme of a lot of their gags, isn't it?
Yeah, precisely. But overall, I'd say it's a pretty funny, pretty shit PC movie. Movie.
It's obviously very strange. I think you have to be in the right mood for it.
Yeah. This isn't an everyday watch, is it?
No. It's not necessarily your light-hearted weekend film.
No, but what I would say is a lot of the memes were based around the romantic element between the bee and the woman. That's not actually a big part of the plot, but it's worth watching for the courtroom drama element of it.
Yeah,
and
which
just
is very thrilling. At one point, a bear comes into the courtroom.
There's a bear. There's an assault on the life of the prosecuting lawyer.
Yeah, Matthew Broderick stings him, and then he's in hospital. For some reason, he goes to a human hospital, even though he's a bee, and he's sitting there in like a human-sized bed with a fake. They've got like a little fake plastic tiny sword from the cafeteria that they're using as a stinger, because that's how saving a bee's life works, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. The bees are also as strong as humans. You see Barry B. Benson having a sword fight with Patrick Warburton. Yeah. At one point, where he's got a little, I've forgotten what he's got. He's got something. But then also he uses the human toilet. The bee uses the human toilet. I'm like,
he says, "Gonna go drain the old stinger."
Yeah. Like, what are you doing? But yeah, it's and Patrick Warburton's late for dinner, and so Renee Zellweger serves up dinner to Barry B. Benson instead. And you're like, well, he didn't eat all the food, did he? Because he's a bee.
No,
he ate like a grain of rice. Yeah, it's like a little fruit pastel he's eating. It's like that's all he's eating.
I wasn't sure what that was. It looked like a little lime.
Yeah, I thought it was like a fruit pastel or a wine gum or something like that. You're like, well, your dinner's still going to be there, Patrick Warburton. He's not going to have eaten it all. He's a bee. But yeah, so but there's some funny jokes, isn't there, in it? I enjoyed Patrick Warburton shouting, "That bee is living my life. When will this nightmare end?" Which is good.
Yeah. His anger was very, very funny. He's a very, very overblown, ridiculous character that actually, was a nice counterpoint to Seinfeld's just kind of always cheerful bee. Yeah.
It's there's a nice binary going on there, isn't there? It's the furious capitalist man versus the chill Chad communist bee.
Yeah, he is really chill, isn't he?
Yeah. He's extremely relaxed all the time. It's brilliant. But yeah, B-movie. Give it a go.
Give it a try. It's absolutely worth your time, for sure.
Yeah, this is nowhere near as bad as people make it out to be. It's maybe not as wacky as people make it out to be either. So don't go into it expecting the meme to control the entire narrative. But there's some solid jokes. It does have those very strange genre shifts. So yeah, it's all right.
If you enjoy a bit of plain Jeopardy ending to a film, but with bees, you're gonna love it.
And if you don't, you're not gonna love the end.
Yeah, a bit like the presence of Hugh Grant in last week's film.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Which also came out the same year as this.
Oh yes, of course, yeah.
It's a good year.
I think that's why we chose it, wasn't it? It was the same year.
Something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's all right. It's all right. It's old B movie,
and it's an interesting one for Jerry Seinfeld because I don't think that he's done a lot of like even like movie acting or voice acting. It seemed like, yeah, it could have been the start of a big career for him in voice acting, but he didn't choose to go down that route necessarily.
Yeah, because what else has he done?
He's done the Comedians Get in My Car and Have a Cup of Coffee. That's the show that he does.
That's the show that he does. Comedians in Car Getting Coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just seeing what else. He voiced Barry B. Benson in the B-movie video game.
There's a B-movie video game?
Yeah, apparently it's awful. It's one of the most notoriously bad games ever released.
I think we should get it. We should play it and do an episode on that.
Yeah, sure. He voiced someone in Dilbert, in the Dilbert TV show. I didn't even realise there was a Dilbert TV show.
No, it wasn't. It was supposed to be awful, I think.
Oh, really? Well, the guy who makes Dilbert's awful, so that makes sense. But yeah, no, he's not done any, really, has he?
No.
Apart from, weirdly enough, the first thing he was ever in was a show called Benson.
Benson?
Yeah.
Ah, setting the stage for it. I see.
Yeah, so the roots of B-movie run all the way back to the 80s.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
And he also did one of the best ever first pitches of a baseball game. It's great.
Oh, really?
I think he's done more than one in his time, but his most recent one at a Mets game, he like kind of sidearms it in there. It's great.
Oh, very good. Very good. So, how are we going to... There's no real interesting trivia about this movie. It's all stuff that we've
I think we've covered it all.
We've covered lots of it already. The only thing to point out is that unfortunately Jerry Seinfeld has said he doesn't want to make a sequel because it would take away from the uniqueness of the original.
But is a live action remake a sequel?
Yeah, or is it a reboot? So yeah, I think Jerry,
a B-boot.
We're gonna get you on board with the B-boot. We're gonna get you in a live action remake. You're gonna wear a bee costume.
Like you always wanted to do.
Like you always wanted. We're going to make it happen.
Ian DreamWorks said no to that, and you were very disappointed. We'll let you do it. We'll let you do whatever you want.
Yeah,
it's going to be your film, man.
We're going to go all out on whatever you want. So how are we going to rank this bad boy?
Let's see. Well, how many pollen jocks are in your hive bringing back the honey today?
So I've got a solid 14 as a good old squad of pollen jocks, bringing it back. It's a very strange movie. It goes in weird directions, but I enjoyed it. I'm taking some points off because it dilutes its strong communist messaging.
Yeah.
But overall, it's a funny little animated movie.
I'm even going to go one more and give it a 15 because I was just so pleasantly surprised by it and how, it wasn't what I was expecting, and I was expecting it just to be kind of laughably rubbish, but it had the shit piece magic, and I really appreciated that, and it deserves its place in meme culture. Yeah, no, definitely. It's you're never going to watch anything quite like B-movie. No, and that's a good thing. Yes, yeah, for sure. So what have we got coming up next? Good. Well, speaking of good things, when we were going through our choices a couple of episodes ago, there was expressed to me by my dad and other people that they were disappointed that we didn't choose As Good As It Gets when I gave you a list of options. So, and Jack Nicholson was in there. So there you go. We're doing As Good As It Gets, which is a film that both of my parents like a lot. Oh, there we go. That's good. It's also a film that I like, so this is going to be nice. Yeah, I think it's a good one. I haven't seen it in quite a few years, so it's a good time to be watching it again, I think. Yes, excellent stuff. And good to do something classic as we approach our 200th episode. We're almost there. Only a few weeks away. You'll have to let me know when we reach it so that we do our special, whatever special episode we do. Well, let's see. This one we're recording right now is episode 197. So As Good As It Gets will be 198. We have one after that, and then it'll be 200.
Oh, that's fine. So it'll be your choice anyway. So we'll.
Yeah.
The pressure's on you to choose a good special movie.
Yeah, for sure. We'll talk offline.
Yes. Yeah.
Prince has made 2 other films that we haven't talked about, so there's a lot of options.
There we go.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for listening. We really, really appreciate it, and we hope you're doing well and staying safe and healthy in these continually strange times, and that you can find joy in things like B-Movie and in our show. We appreciate you.
Yeah, we do. We love you all, and we hope you enjoyed B-Movie.
Yeah. You can find us on Twitter at BigBoysDon'tPod. You can email us, bigboysdon'tcrowpodcast@gmail.com. There's a link in our show notes to where you can give us money. Think of it like a tip jar, not a honey jar.
Yeah, a little bit of extra stuff to get the B-Movie live-action remake off the ground.
Yeah. If every one of you gave us a significant amount of money, we'd be able to get Jerry Seinfeld on board. Remember, it's all the long con to get him involved in Lit Men as well. So,
Yeah, we're creating the great empire of movies here, people.
Yeah. We need your money to open the studio, so please give generously.
Yes, for sure.
All right. And remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And we'll be back next week to talk about As Good As It Gets.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye.